So, today on the Brewer Report, we are going to talk about one of the biggest diseases here in the US, and that is diabetes. Yes, I'm sure you know a lot of people with diabetes. Maybe you are suffering from diabetes. As a matter of fact, 38 million people are estimated to be suffering from this particular disease. And 98 million people in the US are suffering from pre-diabetes. And some experts are expecting by 2050, 1 in 3 American adults to have diabetes. This will, of course, be very costly, and it's just not good for our country and our society. So, we are here to hopefully prevent that particularly high number of 1 in 3. We are here to inform you, and we are here to give you some information on how you perhaps may be able to not only prevent diabetes, but possibly reverse it. Hey, everybody, welcome back to yet another Brewer Report. You heard me at the top. Today, we are talking about diabetes. But first, always remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. It helps us here out in these algorithm streets of YouTube or wherever you are watching us or listening to us. Just be sure you engage with our content. And always remember, we are researchers. We are not your doctors. So, we talk about some pretty serious topics, particularly when it comes to health. So, of course, you should always consult with your own personal doctor about any type of issue you may be having. But we are here to share with you the research that is out there. So, again, when you do speak with your doctor, you are perhaps more informed. All right, Daddy. So let's get to it. Diabetes, I mentioned it at the top. 38 million people are suffering from diabetes, 98 million pre-diabetes, and it's very costly. You wanted to get into the costs of this.
Yes, diabetes is costing the country right now $413 billion. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And so we really have a problem. Now, if you take that and transpose that to 2050, and we increase that amount even more, now you're talking over $1 trillion in terms of just cost. And so one of the interesting things about diabetes, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, is that diabetes actually only ranks number 7 in terms of death, but it is a contributing factor to the deaths from other diseases like cardiovascular disease, cancer, etc. So its impact is the number 1 impact on our health. And that's why you see these startling numbers of how many people have diabetes and how many people have pre-diabetes and don't even know it. That's what's so scary.
Yeah, that is the scary part, because we're going to get into this later in terms of how the earlier you know you have diabetes, the better when it comes to possibly reversing it. And we'll get into that a little later. So let's get into what is diabetes. And because we all know that there are 2 types. There's type 1, there's type 2. So let's get into exactly what this is, Daddy.
Okay, type 1 is basically hereditary and genetic. It's usually in younger children and young adults. In fact, the young adult version is called latent adult diabetes in adults. And so autoimmune diabetes. Autoimmune is a very, very key point because it is genetic. It's like lupus and other autoimmune diseases. So it's latent autoimmune diabetes in adults. In fact, that's a very, very tough disease. Now, what happens is the key is broken. What's the key? Insulin. So your pancreas
is not broken. It's missing. It's missing when it comes to type 1, right?
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. I mean, like I said, the pancreas is not producing insulin. Period.
Right.
That's the big problem. And we know we need insulin to process blood sugar or glucose. So that's the main problem. So you really, even though we're going to talk about some diets that can help, the bottom line is that the you're going to be on what we call lifelong insulin therapy. In other words, you're going to be taking insulin for the rest of your life. Hopefully there is going to be some miracle here within the next 10, 15 years that they can fix that problem in the pancreas, even though it is a hereditary and a genetic disease. Then you have type 2. Now, type 2, we own that because that's just basically based on what you're eating. But in this particular case, the key is just rusty. The lock is rusty.
Yes.
In other words, the insulin is coming out. The pancreas is producing a lot of insulin, but your cells become highly resistant to it because of all of the lifestyle, the diet, and the weight, and you can't get control of the glucose. So because you can't get control of the glucose, the pancreas sees it. There's all this glucose running around in your bloodstream. It just keeps pumping more and more and more insulin, and after a while, your pancreas is going to get tired and become highly resistant. And so that's a problem.
Right. So let's get into the anatomy of insulin resistance, because that's obviously a big part of why people are getting type 2 diabetes. So you have step 1 here.
Okay, so you got carbohydrates that break down into glucose entering your bloodstream. And I want you to hold that word too, carbohydrates, because we're going to talk about some of the real drivers of diabetes a little bit later. So then step 2 happens. In other words, the pancreas releases insulin to unlock the cells, and the cells are resistant so that the doors don't remain open. Glucose is extremely important, especially in your organs and your muscles. It needs that for the energy. So if it's locked, and because of a lot of factors like weight and other factors, because it can't get into your cells, the door is locked. So that's why we say the lock is rusty. Right. And so that's part of the problem. So then the glucose pools in your bloodstream. Pancreatic beta cells go into overdrive, pumping out excessive insulin to force the cells to open up so it will accept the glucose. And then that's when the pancreas starts to really overwork, and eventually, if over time, your pancreas is really going to get tired. And then that's when you have chronically high levels of both insulin and glucose begin to damage your blood vessels, exhaust your pancreas, and force the liver to store excess sugar as visceral fat. And that's when you get fatty liver disease.
Right. Yeah. Ooh, it's just a vicious cycle, as we can see. And speaking of cycles, let's get into that twin cycle hypothesis here. It's about eating. Well, some people think, is diabetes about eating too much sugar? Obviously, it's more complicated than that.
Yeah. I mean, the liver is sort of the driver of this. And so excess calories cause fat to accumulate in the liver. Again, that's the fatty liver problem. The liver becomes insulin resistant and pumps excess glucose into the blood. High insulin levels then force the liver to create more fat. And then, so this is just the cycle. I know we're getting a little technical here. Then the excess liver fat eventually spills over, accumulating inside the pancreas. And then this toxic fat clogs the beta cells, severely impairing the pancreas' ability to produce insulin. And if it's not producing insulin, you got a problem. And so based on some trials that shows that just 10 to 15% body weight reduction drains the fat from the liver and from these organs effectively throwing the gears into reverse and restoring normal glucose. Just a little bit of weight loss. So you got to lose that weight.
Key. And that's the key. But we're getting into the science. Hopefully we didn't lose too many of you with that, but you do need to know how the body works. Like, what are the cells? What are the organs that are impacting my blood sugar? And but in the end, as we just said, what is the solution? How can we prevent this from happening? So
stick with us, because we're going to give you some real solutions here. Stick with us.
And you just heard one piece. It's about that body weight. Let's decrease that. Right. So next we've been talking for the past couple of weeks about ultra processed foods. We know that a large percentage of Americans Consume ultra processed foods. We've already gotten into that. Definitely check out our past shows on that. I think about 60%, if not more, of the American diet is made up of ultra processed foods. And we all know that, obviously what we eat can impact whether or not we get this diabetes or pre-diabetes. So let's get into that. This particular diagram, you have, of course, we'll mention fiber, but take a look at the ultra processed foods here. You have soda, candy, all those type of things. Um,
Right.
let's get into
Right.
that.
Yeah. So what happens is ultra processed food. Now we're in a crisis. We talked about this in a previous podcast. We're in a crisis. And one of the reasons why this diabetes trend is spiking is because of ultra processed foods. And so ultra processed foods like soda, candy, energy drinks, etc., are exploding. And so in essence, look at energy drinks. Who knew? Energy
Yeah, who
drinks are
knew?
damn near at the top of the chart. Then you got frappuccino.
13
Right,
teaspoons of sugar. Yeah.
right. It's amazing. And then everybody said, "Well, let me drink some juice. Then can I at least have some orange juice and some apple juice?" Yeah, but it also spikes your blood sugar. Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit about how you can mitigate some of that, even with some of your juices. But the bottom line is these things are. What happens is the sugar just comes. There's nothing to keep that sugar from rushing into your system because there's no fiber in there. See, fiber slows the absorption of glucose into your system. It slows that particular thing. Now, what you can do is you can drink unsweetened tea. We're big fans of matcha green tea, black coffee, sparkling water, etc. Those are safe swaps for what you see on the screen.
Right, because my behind was swapping soda, like whenever I would go to a movie or something. And like I've said here on the show, during the weekend, I'm a little looser with my diet. So if I'm at the movies, instead of me having a big, cup of soda, I thought, oh, I'll get the vitamin water or the energy drinks. No, that was the wrong decision. So in the future, I personally don't mind it. I'll go ahead and get unsweetened tea. Because, yeah, I was clearly choosing the wrong thing. So next, we want to get into, we talked about the sugary drinks and all that. It's pretty obvious that can be harmful, but fiber is said to be, and we've spoken about this many times, but that can be the speed bump for you, right?
Yeah, to slow down the spike of blood sugar, you need fiber. And at the top of the heap is lentils and beans and berries and nuts. Think about Dr. Furman, G bombs, okay? Greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds, okay? All of the at the top of that list is beans. We talked about that during our beans podcast, that the longest living people in the country eat beans, period. All right. That's why Asians, they eat tempeh, tofu, edamame, all of those beans, and followed by Hispanics who eat a lot of black beans and other beans, followed by whites and then African Americans. So if you follow the beans ladder, you can follow the life expectancy ladder. If you follow the beans, you also follow the people who have the least amount of diabetes. All right. Lentils are at the top of the heap because they are high in fiber and protein. Okay. And protein. I even thought that quinoa would have been a little bit higher, but now it's the beans and the berries and the nuts. We love walnuts. We love almonds. We love pistachios and pecans. Okay, and then avocado. Avocado has that good fat in it. So this is where you're going to start your process. And look down there because a lot of folks like white rice. Well, guess what? White rice, as we told y'all in a previous podcast, is a sugar bomb. Okay, it is a sugar bomb. And the Lord knows, look where the fruit juice is. And I'm gonna give you a tip on fruit juice later. But look how high fruit juice is. Oh, I can go out and buy me some orange juice and some grapefruit juice. I should be good. No, no. Fruit juice without fiber is a non-starter. So we'll talk a little bit more about that and how you. I'll give you a tip on that.
And we have up here, is this more on the blood
Yeah,
sugar
that it goes
comparison?
on to show you the comparison because, like I say, soda, white bread, white rice, black rice. Because we're very big fans of black rice and purple rice, but but we also know that rice plus beans is a complete protein. So what you want to do with that black rice is you're going to combine it with some lentils or some black beans so that you get that the protein plus the extra fiber in order to block your blood sugar response or your blood sugar spikes. But all y'all who like that white rice, when you go to Chipotle, don't ask for white
Ugh.
rice. Get some brown rice or something. Don't get white rice because white rice is a sugar bomb. And white bread, don't even talk about that.
Yes, and the brown rice, it can be an acquired taste for some people, but it will do. And I actually like the black rice and the purple rice. So let's get into the plate here. Let me go ahead and share my screen again. We're going to give you an example of what the diabetes prevention plate would look like based off of what we're saying. So half of your plate needs to be non-starchy vegetables. And as my dad mentioned, you have healthy
Yeah,
fats as well.
non-starchy vegetables. Right.
Right. And then
So it
and
goes back to
then
the G bombs. Greens,
right, greens need to be pretty much half your plate.
half your
One
plate.
fourth of your
Right.
plate would be the carbohydrates, the lentils that my dad just mentioned, even though maybe you want a little bit more lentils based off of that chart, but black beans, quinoa, and then high quality protein. If you do eat meat, you want it to be lean, not fried, and some good healthy fats.
Yeah, you want to lead with tofu, edamame. Again, so you actually on the 1/4 high quality, you're adding even more bean type foods with the tofu, edamame, which is high in protein. And then the hierarchy with meat is fish, chicken, and or poultry like chicken breast, turkey breast, etc. And then an occasional lean piece of beef, a lean piece of beef. Okay, if you got to have meat, we strongly recommend that you go at least 70 to 80% plant based. If you, especially, it depends on how high you are in your A1C in terms of your blood sugar. If you're up there, the blood sugar is 5.7 to 6.4 is pre-diabetic. Everything below 5.7 is diabetes. I mean, is you're normal. Everything above 6.4, you're diabetic. And if you're up there around 7 and 8, showtime. You really got to get serious and change your diet.
Right. And we're here to help you with a plan that, again, you can share with your doctor to, of course, create your official plan with their advice. And so next, let's get into this biggie here, alcohol, alcohol and
Lordy.
glucose conflict. This is quite interesting. A lot of people obviously enjoy their happy hours. But let's get into this, Daddy, the science of alcohol when it comes to diabetes.
Well, first thing that happens is the minute you take that drink and that alcohol hits your system, and this gets very interesting. The liver sees your alcohol as a toxin. Okay. So it just shuts down the glucose process. So you actually get a dip in glucose. Your blood sugar can actually go down because of certain kinds of alcohol. Obviously, there's certain alcohols that are even increase it. And that's why some people end up thinking, okay, I'm just drunk. And all of a sudden, it's because they have low sugar because of the alcohol. And so the pancreas is out there churning away trying to find out what's going on, Miss Liver. I don't. You're not accepting my insulin. You're not producing the glucose like you should. I'm pumping, and so that's a vicious cycle. So put it all in perspective. No more than one drink per day, and then we'll give you the actual drinks that have the least amount of effect.
All right. So this is like the safely managing uh, protocol, I guess you could say, or safety tip. So the key is to never drink on an empty stomach. And my dad mentioned lowest impact type drinks. What do you have? You have
Well, you
champagne.
have you have the Brut, Champagne, the Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Noir. I do drink a little bit of red wine, so I drink Pinot Noir, but I never drink it on an empty stomach. And the low impact would be the dry Chardonnay, the Merlot, the light beers, etc. And the high impact is when you get into these IPAs, and sweetened seltzers. And the danger zone is, I hate to tell all these guys who love Margaritaville, but if you drinking margaritas, guess what? It's gonna spike your blood sugar. You're in trouble.
And I'm not a big alcohol drinker, and of course I like more the danger zone when I do drink because I like it fruity if I'm going to drink. So, but we see what the best options are here. But the key is, again, never go to sleep right after drinking and without checking your blood sugar.
Right, and that's why one of the best ways to mitigate this drop in glucose and when you get that low spike, and to obviously mitigate the impact of that alcohol, is to eat something like a apple slice with some almond butter or peanut butter on some whole toast. You got to have that fiber. Everything we're talking about is fiber. Okay, protein and fiber. So it's protein and fiber. Okay.
Yes, these are the preventions, guys, and we've mentioned on the previous podcast that, drinking in general is not good. But if you must, this would be the protocol here. Now, let's get into, for meat eaters, as we know, we're not vegans, and we know most of our viewers are likely not vegans. So we've come up with a strategy for those of you who are perhaps concerned about diabetes or maybe have diabetes. What would be the strategy in terms of your meal plan? Again, always consult with your doctors. This is just a suggestion. But yeah, so Dave, let's get into it. The 3-2-1 plan.
Right. 3 days on plant-based proteins with lentils, beans, tofu, quinoa, obviously with some additional, obviously with a lot of green veggies. And then you have 2 days where you just eat fish, and then 1 to 2 days of lean poultry and red meat. Okay. So that's kind of giving you a plan. But even with the days of fish and days of lean poultry and red meat, you still have to do that plate that we just showed you. You need to have a lot of greens and a lot of beans. In other words, you lead with greens and beans, and then you eat your fiber, and then you eat your lean poultry and your red meat. Right. Lead with fiber.
Fiber.
You gotta lead. You gotta lead with it.
And it's interesting. This is the 3-2-1 strategy. For me personally, I'm more 5-1-1. I do 5 days of mostly plant-based protein. And I'm starting to eat more and more fish. I wasn't really a big fish eater. So I would say 1 day of the fish on the weekend, and then maybe 1 day of other lean type of meats. Sometimes lean, sometimes, I'll be honest, not too lean. But I'm more to 5-1-1. My dad, I would say, is
6-1.
6-1. Yeah. You're
6-1. I eat fish on Friday. That's it.
So maybe that should be y'all's goal, to get to my dad's strategy.
And if you got to have it, I mean, like I said, you just eat your meat 1 day, but I still, even with my fish day, I lead with greens and beans and rice and dark rice, obviously. I lead with fiber. If you can make a lot of mistakes if you lead with greens and beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. Okay. And we're going to get into a little tip on some seeds a little bit later on.
All right, so let's get into the spice stack. Believe it or not, spices can perhaps help when it comes to your blood sugar.
Absolutely. These spices, 3 of these spices are in our diet daily. Clove powder, Ceylon cinnamon, turmeric, and fenugreek is also a biggie. I put clove powder and Ceylon cinnamon in my smoothies. Okay. I put the turmeric is in whenever I have my salad dressings, I have turmeric. Now, one thing about turmeric, you also need to combine that with some black pepper and a little bit of fat, maybe avocado or even a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. But that has to be a part of your diet. Now, what has happened is these spices actually slow down the spikes in terms of blood sugar. Okay. And clove powder is very powerful. Okay. But you have to be careful with clove powder. You can't have too much of that. And we notice we say Ceylon cinnamon, which is the cinnamon that you can have on a daily basis. Other cinnamon, which a lot of you find in your grocery stores, you cannot have that on a daily basis because it has coumarin in it. It'll affect your blood in terms of thinning your blood. So you got to be very careful with the cinnamon that's in your cassia cinnamon that's in the grocery store. So Ceylon is the key word. You can have Ceylon cinnamon every day. Now, I will admit the other cinnamon actually kind of mimics what cloves will do. They will really lower your blood sugar, but you got to be careful. This is one conversation you have to have with your doctor if you're going to add the cassia cinnamon, other cinnamon into your diet. You got to be very.
And we had a show on that. We have to find it. Hopefully, I'll be able to link it below.
All right.
We had a show where we talked about that.
Right, but these are great to put in your oatmeal, into your cereals, everything that can make it taste better. I actually take Ceylon cinnamon and a little bit of clove powder. I think we can just talk about the juice right now. I take the way I drink my grapefruit juice is I actually take the grapefruits, core them out, blend them, and I put Ceylon cinnamon in it. Now, seeds. If you really have to have that juice, put some Ceylon cinnamon and some ground flax seeds in it. Why? The ground flax seeds give you what? Fiber. Okay. If you just have to have that orange juice, you just have to have that grapefruit juice. And if you're not, like me, actually going to go ahead and blend it, or at least buy some with pulp in it. Remember, it's fiber. Buy pulp grapefruit juice, pulp orange juice, and then add a little bit of Ceylon cinnamon and some flax seeds, ground flax seeds, and shake that up and drink that. Now you will mitigate some of that spike that you saw earlier with the juice.
Right. And so that's one of the hacks. In fact, we're probably going to, we will be showing you some videos in our shorts that will give you some good hacks when it comes to managing diabetes or managing your blood sugar. So next, let's get into the micronutrients, the grease the lock, I guess. We talked about the rusty lock at the beginning. So this will grease the lock. So let's get into this, Daddy, with the micronutrients.
Yeah, and this is extremely important. It goes back to G-bombs, greens. Okay, so you notice with magnesium, magnesium, one of the best sources of magnesium, which actually physically helps the cellular lock recognize that you're trying to get some insulin in there. I mean, some insulin in there. Recognize the insulin key. So, and helps with glucose metabolism. So magnesium is extremely important. Spinach, steam your spinach and eat spinach. Almonds, again, nuts. We said G-bombs plus nuts. So this is a part of that diet. Put some, but steam your spinach because it does have it will kind of block some nutrients in other foods. But bottom line is steam your spinach and eat a big bowl of spinach every day.
And then we have zinc.
Zinc, one of my favorites is zinc.
That's been your favorite since the 80s. I have to say that.
A plus zinc. I used to take a supplement called A plus zinc.
Yeah, see, there we go. Yeah.
It really helps with the absorption of zinc. Now, zinc has other connotations. We won't get into that.
Oh my gosh.
Essential for the pancreas to synthesize and safely store and secrete insulin. So chickpeas and cashews, as well as pumpkin seeds. And pumpkin seeds kind of fit on both sides of this chart. Pumpkin seeds need to be added to the zinc side, but they're on the other side, but we'll get to that as well.
Right. So you have chromium.
Chromium, which is broccoli. Okay. It's a glucose tolerance and enhances insulin's overall efficiency, allowing the key to turn more smoothly. In other words, allows that glucose to get into those cells and be more efficient. So broccoli, again, greens, and of course then vitamin D down at the bottom. It's extremely important for your pancreas because it supports the healthy and sustained insulin production. And now the ultimate source, pumpkin seeds, the double whammy, zinc and magnesium. I eat pumpkin seeds every day. Now with pumpkin seeds, what you have to do is soak them and then dry them. Soak them and then dry them. And I have a big jar of pumpkin seeds. Okay, a big jar of pumpkin seeds. I eat that every day. And oh, by the way, you eat pumpkin seeds with something citrus, like a lemon water. Or if you're going to do it with juice, you got to do the juice the way I just told you to do the juice. You got to put the flax seeds and the as well as the
and the Ceylon cinnamon.
Ceylon cinnamon in it. Flax seeds and Ceylon cinnamon in it. That's the only way you can roll with the juice with your pumpkin seeds. But otherwise, you can drink some pumpkin seeds. I also drink pumpkin seeds with our hibiscus tea, which has lemon in it. So that gives us the citrus. Now, that's a powerful combination. Hibiscus tea and a handful of pumpkin seeds with lemon.
And if you are a woman, you know, and if you are a woman, just ensure that hibiscus tea would be good for you. You know, we've had a few people comment on that, and they are correct. You again want to consult with your doctors,
right?
Because hibiscus tea can react differently for some people, but in general, it's the highest antioxidant beverage.
Right. But it is the high, like Stacey says, it's numero uno, followed by matcha green tea.
Okay, so now let's get into whether diabetes can be reversed. That's the big question. We already got into, as you can see here, how, you know, the reversal mechanism, clinical data from the direct trial shows that losing just 10 to 15% of body weight drains the fat from these organs, effectively throwing the gears into reverse and restoring normal glucose control. So that's key. You want to lose weight. You don't want too much body fat. So that's the most obvious statement, right? But however, there is a critical window here when it comes to whether or not you can reverse diabetes. And I don't want to, for those of you who are not within this critical window, do not feel you have no hope. Let's make that very clear. You do have hope. You can change your diet today. Again, talk with your doctors. But it is very important we talk about this critical window. Go ahead, Daddy.
Yeah, well, within 6 to 8 years of having diabetes, that's when the window starts to diminish. And in terms of full remission, in other words, where you completely get off your meds, etc. But again, if you're aggressive in that diet that we showed you with you know, the 3-2-1 or the 4-1 or the 4-2, I mean 4-3 or the 5-2 like Stacey, or 6-1 like me.
I'm 5-1-1. You're 6-1.
5-1. Okay, 5-1-1. Okay. Anyway, to be honest with you, you need to really get aggressive. The further you are into this window, like if you right now get that 5 years, 6 years, you really need to get very aggressive. But other than that, then your pancreas starts to lose its energy, and in essence, you get to a point where it's just going to be more difficult in terms of remission, simply because of what's happening to your pancreas and your liver. And so you got to be very, very aggressive when it comes to this particular window.
And it may be difficult, but you're still here, you're still living, and you can live a healthier lifestyle, still engage in that G-BOMBS diet, even if you are outside of this window.
Right. And medical science is making progress. And so that's why you want to stay in the game. You really want to stay in the game. And, you know, if you can't you at least do the 3-2-1. If you're at this window here, I'll be honest with you, you really need to go 5-2-6-1. Because you really need to up your game when it comes to your plant-based diet, and go back to our chart at the beginning with the lentils and the beans, and then of course the greens, etc. with the spinach giving you some magnesium and the spices, etc. We're going to put together we're going to put together another. We're going to do some shorts on this, by the way, to give y'all some additional tips.
Yes, and in fact, I do have another chart I could show. This kind of summarizes everything we just talked about, but hopefully you can see this. You see the plate portion, you see the glucose sponges with the spices. This is where you want to be. You want to be full of fiber, know your spices, and have that plate be mostly vegetables. And that's the key.
Okay, now let's talk about exercise, because exercise is also very critical to controlling your blood sugar. What is recommended is that after your meal, what they found is that people who go out and take just a 20, 30-minute walk, even as little as 10 minutes, your muscles start to demand more glucose, which means that you start to pull glucose out of your bloodstream. And if you do any kind of strength training, your muscles are going to demand more glucose. I work out at Planet Fitness at least 4 or 5 times a week, and so I know that my blood sugar is not going to spike because my muscles are demanding more glucose out of my system.
Yes, so exercise is key. And another thing that I know for me, for the most part, I'm eating, or not for the most part, I do eat the G Bombs diet. Like I said, I'm 511, though I'm not quite on the level of my dad. But one thing I do struggle with is sleep, and I can be stressed. And that too is important to manage in order to prevent these complications when it comes to diabetes. So that for me is something I'm personally going to work on. In fact, down the line, we talk a lot about nutrition on this channel, but we are going to get more into fitness and also into your mental health, the meditation. All that matters. It's like it's a synergy thing. It all works together. What you eat, your movement. In fact, a note here is your fork and your feet may be 2 of the most powerful tools you have to prevent and even reverse type 2 diabetes. Your fork and your feet, and we can add your mind and your peace of mind. Right. And you need to get that sleep in.
Great. That's a great quote. Fork and your feet. Again, walk yeah. After dinner. Okay. Take a walk. Okay. That makes your muscles demand some of that glucose that you just put in your system. And right. The bottom line is, if you got to have that dessert, I mean, if you just have to have that dessert, you eat the dessert after your meal. Okay. After your meal, and try to get one that has a little bit of fiber. I think we've already talked about one of our favorite desserts, which is a dates, dark chocolate, and walnut.
And we have a video of us making that, so I can link that as well.
Yeah, we'll show you our favorite dessert. What we're leading with in that dessert? Fiber. It's a lot of fiber in dates.
Right. Try to eat more dark chocolate. For me, during my 5-day period, I tend to eat as my dessert, because I get it. Sometimes you want something sweet after your dinner. I eat an apple. I eat a pear. It's sweet. It gives me that craving. Now on the weekend, I may, splurge a little bit. But
you're 1-1. You're 1-1.
Hey, I got to keep it real and authentic, because look, y'all could see me out here in these streets and be like, Stacey, why are you eating that cake? Well, because it's Saturday or Sunday. Anyway, but 5 days out of the week, again, I'm not perfect. And that's the key. This is not about perfection. I'm not perfect, but I intentionally choose to eat, even if I do have a little bit of a cake, I'll still eat my apple or a pear, because that fiber is key.
Right. Fiber is king and queen, period. I'm telling you, you can get away with a lot of stuff when you eat fiber. Yes. And even with some of those those foods that are kind of low on the totem pole when it comes to spiking your blood sugar. In other words, they really spike your blood sugar. If you lead with the ones at the top of the totem pole of the chart with the lentils and the beans, etc., and the greens, you're probably going to be a lot better off, and you're going to lose some weight. To be honest with you, you're going to lose some weight. I mean, Stacey has a tremendous weight loss journey, and
that I need to share more on.
yeah, she's got to share. You got to share that, because I'm telling you. But you look at that stability chart: lentils, beans, berries, nuts, avocados, steel cut oats, etc. And in that steel cut oats, then that's when you start to add those spices that we talked about. You know, the clove powder and the Ceylon cinnamon. Add that into the steel cut oats and other things that you may eat in a sort of a cereal kind of way, or and put it in your smoothies. Then all of a sudden, that sweetened, you don't do sweetened yogurt, you do unsweetened yogurt. Then you put some oats and some flax seeds and things like that into your. We're gonna present some recipes as well, but during our shorts, we're going to give you some recipes. But we just kind of want to give you some foundation today, and make sure you focus on that 20 foods ranked worst to best.
Right. So stay tuned. We're not done with diabetes. So we're definitely going to give you more information on that. I mean, we have a ton of hacks. One hack in particular is to get some water and maybe a little bit of apple cider vinegar before a meal. That is one hack. But like I said, we'll get deeper into that a little later. But we've already had quite a long show today. Diabetes is some serious business, but we will be back, like I said, to talk more on this. Look for more of our shorts on this. Maybe we'll even do a live on this, because it's just so much information. So hopefully we didn't lose you too much with the science, but we really, really want to pin down how to hopefully prevent it and reverse it. And that's about it. Any other closing words, Daddy?
No, this is going to be a health crisis, to be honest with you, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to deal with it. As I said at the top, diabetes is not the cause of a lot of death, but is in and of itself, but it is a contributing cause to death, with cardiovascular disease, cancer, etc. Unfortunately, I had an aunt that passed because she had diabetes, but she had to have a leg amputated, and eventually that took her out. And so it's a tough business because of the blood vessels. Again, glucose gets in there and it starts to damage your blood vessels. You lose circulation and all of those sorts of things. And so it's a tough disease, but it is a major contributor to our health problems in this country. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't even know that they're leaning in that direction. 5.7 to 6.4 is pre-diabetic. You have pre-diabetes. Anything below 5.7 A1C, you're okay. Everything between 5.7 and 6.4 A1C, you're pre. And then 6.5 and higher, you are in trouble. You have diabetes, and you really need to get busy and get aggressive. You don't want to end up in that 6 to 8 year period. You really want to go after this thing.
Yes, and that's what we are here for, to inform you and to hopefully give you a good a blueprint or diet plan. But again, always consult with your doctors about any new diet plan you are a part of. Well, that's our show for today. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, do all that great stuff, and we will catch you next time. Peace.